Whether Salmond possesses courage or merely chutzpah, I believe the key is the thrill that he derives from risk. How are you?
How you doing, Michael? Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Good to see a proper tourie.
There's a horse running on Thursday I'm quite interested in.
What's that?
Alex Salmond. What odds?
He's a certainty. He's 46. He'll win the election. I'll be voting for him.
Alex Salmond is famously something of a betting man. A punter who knows the form and generally keeps his nose ahead. So the horse that attracts me in the 3:15, for obvious reasons, is Blue Bunting. However, it says here, bare form, nothing to write home about, and she looks vulnerable to speedier sorts. Sounds like she's got about the same chances as the Blues in this election.
have a Mario Lanza on it.
Go on, two quid.
£2
at 150 to 1.
150 to 1.
Wing and a prayer.
Wing and a prayer for the Tories, because that's what they're on. Right, Michael.
Right. I'll be back to collect later.
Right.
I'll take
See
it.
if that wins.
I'll take it.
I'll polish your shoes.
Come on, wing and a prayer. Come on, wing and a prayer. Come on, wing and a prayer. Ah! Came last. Alex Salmond promised his party that he would win 20 first-past-the-post seats, way more than they'd ever managed before. He said he would defeat Labour and become First Minister. And to make things a little more interesting, he upped the stakes. For the 2007 Scottish parliamentary elections, that seasoned tipster Alex Salmond decided to have a punt. He put his name forward for the constituency of Gordon. It was long odds, because the Liberal Democrats had a majority there of more than 4,000 votes. But Salmond decided that that was where he would place his bet.
Well, he's a natural gambler. He assesses these things well, but yes, of course it was a gamble. But given his ability to campaign, given his reputation, I think it was one that was going to pay off. I thought that from the very beginning, and it did pay off. He's got a favourite saying, which is from the Marquis of Montrose. He either fears his fate too much, or his deserts are small, who will not put it to the touch, to win or lose it all. He quotes that from time to time. He also lives his political life like that, and it tends to work out well for him.
Is this love of the High Wire Act critical to his enjoyment of politics? So he's a bit like Margaret Thatcher, Tony Blair. I even recognise this in myself to some extent. One of these people who is exhilarated by the thought that they go to the chamber and they don't know that day whether they're going to survive or perish, that the difference between triumph and disaster thrills them.
Absolutely, but you know, if you show me any serious politician who is not fueled by adrenaline, and that means thirsting after success, desperately wanting it, and desperately trying to avoid disaster, but really enjoying walking along the precipice, and it makes victory all the sweeter.
Securing the winning ticket is a very sweet moment, as Alex Salmond found in 2007. As the final results trickled in, the First Minister in waiting seized the moment.
In the hours following the Scottish Parliament election, it's not yet clear who's come first, but it is appearing to be going in the SNP's direction. Now, the SNP had pre-booked Prestonfield House Hotel in Edinburgh, set amidst beautiful, beautiful grounds. It was a very sunny day in May 2007, and they've hired a helicopter to get Alex Salmond from his constituency down to Edinburgh on the Friday afternoon. So that touches down, you know, with the press gathered, it all looks extremely presidential.
He loves the big event, and he loves being the centre of attention, and that's as most politicians do. It was very, very touch and go as to which party would actually be the largest party. The speech that I drafted as he was coming down specifically left an area to say that we don't quite know how this is going to pan out, but by the time you land, hopefully we'll be in a position to say that we are the largest party.
Salmond then emerges, and after a break, he walks up to this podium emblazoned with the SNP logo, with again journalists and cameramen gathered around, and delivers a very nice, a very moving speech.
Alistair Gray once wrote, "Work as though you lived in the early days of a better nation." Our commitment to Scotland is this: we will work, and these are the days of a better nation. Thank you very much.
And he gives the appearance of a winner. In terms of establishing that momentum, it was very effective. Jack McConnell, the leader of the Labour Party, meanwhile, is on a back street in Glasgow looking very much like a loser.
He is an adrenaline junkie in that way, and that's why he loves campaigns. He loves the attention. It's you know, not in a particularly egotistical way, just because if you're someone who thinks you've got a message, the idea of having the eyes of the world upon you to deliver that message is as good as it gets in politics. So of course he's a showman, but rather that than dreary, dull and utterly uninspiring.
Now, if the SNP had emerged as not winning the election and Labour had, it all, of course, would have looked tremendously silly and presumptuous. But it didn't. That was the crucial thing. It looked presidential, it looked as if Salmond was going to win the election, and he did.
The gamble had paid off. Alex Salmond was elected for the first time to the Parliament sitting at Holyrood as the MSP for Gordon. Within a few days, he was elected First Minister of Scotland, the one and only position in government that he's ever held. Having made the long journey to First Minister, what style and qualities did he bring to government?
I think he's restored people's faith in the Scottish Parliament. Things were getting to a bit of a low ebb after two coalition administrations. I think that what we've done is shown that competent government in Scotland can take place and can be good for Scotland. And I think Alex has been very much a figurehead of that. I think he's also made Scottish politics more interesting.
A view not shared by his political rivals.
If you look at the catastrophe of the Scottish banks, that wasn't made in London, that was made in Edinburgh. And, you know, this is the man who actually said that he personally approved the RBS takeover of the Dutch bank ABN. Well, if he did, then that says something about his judgment. His energy policy, you know, it is just, you know, pie in the sky. And, you know, he is very rarely, though, is he questioned about these things. And the result is that he's got away with bringing him out of a situation where even to question him is to be accused of negativity.
I would classify the SNP government and the members of the leadership after 2007 election as falling into the trap of managerialism. Now, I understood that they had to prove themselves credible, and they certainly did. They were far better than the previous Labour people. But then the managerialism became all. They never campaigned outside that chamber at all.
For independence?
For anything, as a matter of fact.
There's an interesting question there. Have the ease and status of high office subdued Alex Salmond's passion to set Scotland free? You look very comfortable as First Minister.
I should hope so. Do you want me to be uncomfortable?
No, but you just look a bit too comfortable.
I see.
I think there are some people. I mean, you're doing well in the campaign.
Last thing I like in London is a Scot who looks comfortable. You should look at. It's not Scots who look comfortable you want to watch out for. It's what was it P.G. Wodehouse said? It's not difficult to tell the difference between a ray of sunshine and a Scot with a grievance.
I talked to you while you're campaigning. Have you been campaigning for independence?
All my life I've campaigned for independence, Michael.
Not featured much in this campaign.
Well, because, you know, we took the decision in 2004 when I came back as leader that we'd pursue independence in terms of referendum policy. That's the right way to do it.
Did you hold a referendum?
Well, Michael, I got beaten 3 times in votes in the Scottish Parliament, and it would have been very foolish for me to give my political opponents the satisfaction of stomping all over my referendum bill when I knew what they were going to do. There will be a time when, you know, they won't be stomping over it too much.
I've witnessed a small sample of Alex Salmond's campaigning energy. He's been on the stump since he was a teenager, and despite some spectacular setbacks and years of frustration, he's sat right back and started all over again. As one who's had his ups and downs in politics, I wondered whether it was the bear pit of Scottish politics that had given him that resilience.
I think there's a tendency in the Scottish National Party to recognise how great the odds are against you, and therefore always to be prepared to come back no matter what happens. I mean, you've got to remember, Alec is of a generation in the SNP as I am, where with the exception of the 1970s, it was a pretty miserable time in the early 60s, 70s, early 80s, certainly through the 80s. So in those circumstances, you've got to, if you're going to stay in politics, be resilient. But he's resilient as a human being, without a doubt.
During the course of making this film, I watched an amazing shift in public support. Going into the election, Labour led in the polls. But the campaign produced perhaps the biggest turnaround in any modern British election. Politicians pretend to ignore opinion polls. Yeah, right. Good polls fire your adrenaline, and bad polls make you want to hide away. The prediction was that Alex Salmond could achieve something close to an overall majority. I'm told that those close to him were sceptical that things could be that good. In fact, they turned out better.
Scottish National Party, SNP, 140,749 votes.
Torrance David, Scottish National Party, 12,579 votes. I declare David Torrance to be elected to serve in the Scottish Parliament as a member for the Kirkcaldy constituency.
After the SNP landslide, this is a changed Scotland. The party asked, keep Alex Salmond as First Minister, and the voters duly did. Scotland said yes, not to independence, but to Alex Salmond for his competence, charisma, gambles and showmanship. They've handed him an overall majority. Now nothing can stop him bringing forward a referendum on Scotland's future. How close is he now to delivering independence?
If the SNP were to change its tactic and its narrative, I think it would find itself so close to independence it would probably frighten it. Because although people are not interested per se in independence or devolution or any other constitutional question, they are interested in how they live their life and what future their children are likely to have, and how services are delivered in present-day Scotland. And if it is proved to them, if they come to believe that these would be better delivered by a sovereign Scottish Parliament, then people would vote for that.
Can we Unionists be confident that he won't win a referendum on independence?
Nobody going into a referendum can be confident that they're going to win on either side. This has to be fought for. I mean, I think a lot of the people who voted for the Nationalists at the Scottish election weren't voting for independence. The big question as to whether or not we remain part of the United Kingdom and how that affects each and every one of us and our children and generations to come, that's one that has got to be fought in detail, which is why there has to be the political space, whether Alex Salmond likes it or not, to be critical of what he is saying, because some of it, frankly, doesn't stand up.
Let me summarise now the strength of Alex Salmond's position to you. When there comes to be a referendum on independence, the yes campaign will be led by Alex Salmond. The no campaign will be led by who?
It depends on the referendum is. But my guess is it will be led by people from right across the spectrum. But, the people in Scotland are not, are very aware of what's at stake here. This isn't going to be a beauty contest. This is something that would happen, and if it happened, it would happen forever.
Perhaps so. But what sort of autonomy might be offered to the Scots in a referendum?
I think the SNP has been on a journey these last few years. In the past, when power was a distant prospect, independence was simply a slogan. As they've gained power, they're having to think about it. They're having to mature. And the notion of independence, I think, is in transition. I think we're going to move to an ever looser union. That's what the SNP will understand. There will always be a United Kingdom in some shape or form. The SNP isn't yet ready to say that, but that's where they're heading, I suspect. A more confederal type relationship. Maybe this election result will give the SNP leadership the courage to say what I believe they actually think.
This is Kirkcaldy, where my mother grew up. They've elected Labour politicians here since the 1930s. Last week, the Holyrood seat was won by the SNP. It was the 65th seat to return a Scottish nationalist, the constituency that guaranteed Alex Salmond's absolute majority. Understandably, it made him happy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Kirkcaldy is my kind of town.
It's my kind too. Believe it or not, I used to sunbathe on the beach here during childhood holidays. After weeks of following this historic campaign, I think I understand the Alex Salmond phenomenon. But the election result has thrown up a bigger question concerning the future of the United Kingdom.
People in Scotland tell me there's little support for independence. But as the recent referendum in the UK on the alternative vote shows, opinion shifts fast. And the First Minister's recent landslide re-election shows that he's persuasive. Soon, there'll be a referendum on a whole new relationship between England and Scotland. Have a flutter on it if you like, but you don't often make money betting against Alex Salmond.